join me on stage. We'll talk a little bit more about it. So gentlemen, I'll start with just the open question first, and I'll start with you, Michael. What are you enjoying the most about Dreamforce? What have you been most excited about hearing about?
I guess the most exciting thing so far has been running into people that I feel like I haven't seen in years. And it hasn't really been years, it's just felt like a long time. And then, of course, Genie. That's going to be the big thing, probably. Sorry to steal your answer.
Jim, same question.
No, for me, it's really three things. It's connections. I mean, what kind of MuleSoft guy would I be if I wasn't talking about connections? But all the connections of the people that I get to meet just within the community and within my own company. It's also idea generation. I mean, you get a collection of individuals like this pulled together in one place. How often does that happen, for one thing? And the types of ideas that come out of just stopping by and talking to folks is amazing. And then probably the third thing is the excitement. I mean, you can just see it. It's palpable out there on Howard Street, isn't it? I mean, people swimming upstream. So that's it.
And Monica, same question to you.
Yeah, I think in addition to what they have said, this is my first Dreamforce, right? So seeing these many people in one building, not just one, but in one place is a new thing for me. So that's a new way to connect with multiple people in there. I have met so many people, I made so many connections. Plus, I learned so much from all the other sessions that I have been to. So it's a very different experience for me, and first time experience. So.
Well, and it's a lot of people, and it's even a little bit smaller, I think, this year than it has been in the past. So you just wait till next year; it'll get even bigger. Yeah. So I want to start with just a really open-ended question. You know, Simone did a great demo about ACB, the Anypoint Code Builder. What are you guys most excited about with that in particular? And again, I'll just start at the end with you, Michael. What are you most excited about with ACB? What's going to change for you the most in your team?
The most exciting thing for me is that it's in the cloud. There's no getting around that. I don't know if anybody has ever had problems with like networking or Java or your IT team hates you, stuff like that. I'm excited for that not being the barrier to entry to do stuff going forward.
Excellent, Jim.
Well, for me, it's the flexibility to have both of those things. It's the because you're right about the web, but also having that control locally when you need it. But also this, as I've been working with this, it's the modern IDE features that it has, and it's maybe just even sometimes the little things like columnar select, right? Being able to use Visual Studio Code to just do column select as opposed to line select, and it's little things like that are just that you're used to in other editors, and now that's coming forward in here.
And Monica, same question.
Yeah, the very first thing for me is it's Visual Studio based, Visual Studio Code, right? And when Simon asked the question who is VS Code user, I'm one of the users, and I love that ID. So that is very first thing that comes to me when ACB is going on the VS Code, which means I get to bring all my customized extensions and the plugins into the same development environment, which mostly I work with, like Anypoint related development, right? So yeah. Now, just like if I send you a GitHub URL, you can just hit a period on it and it takes you to the whole code space and all that ID thing. I hope I will be able to do that same way, like I get a GitHub link to my Mule project and send it to Jim, like Jim, can you just take a look at this project, and he can just open it in the IDE and continue with it. So there are possibilities around it.
I agree. I think this is just the tipping point for where we're going to take the code builder and the integrations. Michael, you talked about it being web-based as being the biggest, sort of most compelling thing that's engaged with you so far. Can you dig into it a little bit more? How is that going to change for you? How is that going to change for your team? What about that is actually so exciting? Beyond just not having to deal with the negatives, but what are the positives you see with that as well?
Yeah, so in my position, we have many Mule teams that are working, and they're in different parts of our family of companies. And we do demos and we do lunch and learns, and we talk about the amazing stuff that we can do with this platform, and we usually generate a lot of excitement. And for me, it's going to be most powerful to be able to say, okay, and this is amazing, and go here and click this button and get going, right? You don't have to download this ID and do all of this setup and set up this proxy. Just click go and get to the joy. right? You don't have to go through all of the trouble of getting set up. They're already excited. I want to capitalize on that excitement and get them right to it. And then as a personal thing, like coming from like the Salesforce background, when I first got introduced to MuleSoft in 2019, I was so excited, and they're like, go download this IDE onto your desktop, and I was like, wait a minute, what? I'm a cloud hippie. I build in the cloud for the cloud. So.
No, and I'll just reiterate, I think Simone made a point at the end there, but this is going to be the same IDE that Salesforce CodeBuilder is going to be built on. So you're going to be able to have a single environment to work on both of those within Visuals Code. Monica, to you and the teams that you're working on, do you see something similar to Michael? Are you seeing that experience, that initiation being a real challenge in getting teams up and running? And do you think being on the web will speed that up?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Michael on that one, because when you have a new researcher joining to your team, and if you want to onboard him to the Mule side, and if fortunately he's from somewhere else and now moving to the MuleSoft, that initial friction of getting all that tool set up, it's completely different tool set, right? So that adds a little friction. But now firstly it's on VS Code, which is most of the developers should be able to relate themselves, because it's polyglot IDE, right? So many people use it. So that onboarding process definitely I see becoming more smoother from developer's point of view to get going on the actual productivity part of it.
That's great. Well, and you mentioned productivity, and Jim, you had mentioned it earlier, and I want to talk a little bit about code snippets, and I want to talk about reuse and building blocks. And you talked about trying to build something more efficient and more productive. So how do you see that both changing for your teams that are implementing, and as well as the companies you advise and give implementation to? How do you see that changing in that environment?
Yeah, so actually the code snippets are one of the things that I'm most excited about this, and the building blocks as well, which we haven't seen quite yet. But the snippets, this is something that as an architect you can predefine your best practices and your standards, and that's what I really kind of love about this is, a lot of times you don't see, when you get your when you're doing code reviews and stuff, and everybody's doing it the same, and then you get somebody's code and it's like, wait a minute, you didn't follow this. I want their creativity focused on solving the business problems, and not on how am I structuring this? Am I doing the try, catch, and errors and all of that stuff the same way? And this lets you do that in a very powerful way. It's like in Studio, when you're dragging and dropping one of those little, your operations over, it's that times 10, right? Like, because now you can wrap, an entire pattern around that in a snippet, and I think that's just extremely powerful.
Yeah, because you nodding, Michael. So do you want to add and extend that?
Yeah. So like you're talking about different clients and trying to bring that success to different clients. For me, it's the same. It's just different people within our family of companies. But it's the same thing, right? Once we get past that hurdle of how do you get started, it's how do you get good, right? And I really liked what you talked about. Like, we always make a big deal about focusing on the special sauce. Like, what are the things that actually move the needle forward for our customers and our clients? It's not simple stuff, right, that we could do as snippets. If we use snippets and we use building blocks and we use the design time recommendations, we get to focus on the thing that actually delights the client and actually moves the needle for us. And that's huge for us.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because Jim, one of the things you said really resonates with sort of design time recommendations, which is it's trying to make the teams more effective and productive for what they're doing, not make them do the same thing over and over again, right? And can we eliminate some of those steps? Can we automatically define them to make them more effective? So again, it's the special sauce, focusing on the things that really differentiate them and really make them build the next great API, not the same API they built 5 more times, right? And reducing that work.
I mean, if you think about it, it's like what we do with APIs right now, right? When we build an API and we deploy it into Exchange, we drop it out there in Exchange. We don't want to rebuild that again, and I don't want to rebuild another error handler again, right? I want to package it up and put it in a snippet and tell them to go use that. So.
No, it's just funny that APIs are designed for reuse, but the things that build the APIs are not necessarily designed for reuse until now, right? That's what we're trying to say. And also, so I want to say on Mike, one of the things I almost want to jokingly say is I feel like, is this a session for MuleSoft or is this a session for the greatness of VS Code? But so, you know, you've been talking about VS Code being so awesome. You mentioned it being polyglot. What, you know, like, expound on it a little bit more. Like, how do you really see that working differently, and how do you see it integrated with the other things that you're working on in your environments?
Yeah, the reason I mentioned that as a polyglot and VS Code is great because it kind of it is great for many reasons. Right?
That's a lot of insight from Monik. It's great because it is great.
You don't need to justify it is right. No, I'm just kidding. But I think the VS Code. I work in Java. I work in Python. I work in different types of languages. Right. So many times I work on 3 IDEs at a time. Like I have IntelliJ open for something, I have VS Code open for something, and then I have Anypoint Studio open for my new projects, right? So now if we are moving Anypoint Studio into VS Code, then it is giving me an opportunity to consolidate all my IDs in there, because practically IntelliJ is whatever I'm doing there, I can do in VS Code too. So practically you are pushing me to get into a single ID for everything, which is a good thing, right? And then if I am a Mule developer plus the other apps that I'm developing, then it helps me to stay focused on the same ID and doing all these things, right? Because every time I'm changing my ID, that takes away my productivity because I'm switching my context. Oh, I was just now in this good ID and now I'm completely different ID. Where am I?
Yeah, no, and I think that you're talking about productivity, you're talking about making people more effective at what they're already doing, right? And if VS Code is going to help with that, and I think even for people who are not using VS Code today, I think we'll find efficiencies in there and the improvements in that experience. I also think that, you know, it's, as much as I would love for every single thing you ever do to be within Mule, it's an acknowledgement that other things are out there, right? You're going to be working on other things, you're going to have other languages, you're going to have other snippets of code doing other things, and being able to interface with those more effectively is going to work really well. At the same point, I mean, Jim, I think from someone who's going to work with a lot of different companies, how else do you see that changing how those companies can work and how you might advise them to be working effectively with things?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I love your answer, Monik, about context switching, because it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're context switching between apps and you're thinking about different things, about different ways of doing something, that really does wear on you throughout the day. If you do that 100 times a day, you know, I mean, how many of you guys, you know, your desktop right now, and you look at your taskbar at the bottom, and you've got, you know, 15 copies of Notepad++ open, and you've got, you know, Visual Studio Code, and you've got, you know, 15 other different tools that we use, and each one of those requires your brain to work in a little bit different way. And you know, so back to your point about clients. You know, our clients are like anyone else. I mean, they've got their own set of tools, right? They're things that they're comfortable with. A lot of times they're .NET developers, and they're already familiar with VS Code through that format. So you know, it's meeting our customers where they are, and making sure that they can get those efficiencies out of the tools that they're already used to using. And you know, with VS Code locally, right? You know, you've got a little bit of a network independence on that, and you're not dependent on you know, having that connectivity.
You're not dependent on conference Wi-Fi.
Right, dependent on conference Wi-Fi. Yeah, so that's I think that's the exciting thing.
Yeah, can I add something in that? So in addition to all of that, I think most of us may have seen the plugin or the marketplace of the VS Code, right? So one of the good things for me at least is now all the other plugins that I have been using for my usual development task, I should be able to bring in all that plugins into my new development process, right? It could be as simple as formatting your XMLs, or it could be as simple as making sure your commit messages are good, or anything that I'm used to stay in the IDE and use the commands like Simon was using, Ctrl+Shift+P, open your command, start typing it, not to switch away from your IDE or move your hand right click. So it basically, those small things definitely help you achieve more productivity in that.
Yeah,
I love it. So you mentioned all those tools you're able to do within. So VS Codes, you can open a terminal, right? And you've got boom, right there inside the IDE, you've got your terminal. You can go and do your, if you prefer to do get commands, from command line, and using CLI for that, you can do that. And you don't have to bounce out to a command line prompt to do that. You've got it right there. At the same time, if you want to use the get extension, absolutely, it's you pull that in. And frankly, I like that. I like how VS Code handles get in general, or Studio, or sorry, source code control like that anyway. Over Studio, there's some quirks you have to deal with in Studio that I think is a lot easier with this new interface.
Yeah, and I was going to add, I think one of the things I've also been very excited about is you talk about ease and productivity, but I also think about the tooling. And when you think about, and I'll just ask the question: how many people here are trying or have to hire MuleSoft developers? And how many of them are really excited to go to Eclipse, right? You get someone straight out of school, or science major, and you're like, oh, please go to use Eclipse. And they're like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, as part of this, we also think that a lot of this new tooling will help you find people to be much more excited about learning these environments, right? Even if they haven't had to use them before, as you were mentioning.
Yeah.
I know we're going to hear on time, so I really just want to thank the panel for the input, for the group. There's a few more things you can learn for next. Including, we've got a MuleSoft keynote as part of the IT keynote coming out. You will hear Michael again talk, so please go and support your colleagues here. It's a great time to learn more. And share your feedback.
I have one question for the panel.
Hold on, one question for the panel. So I was going to say, for everyone else, we can take maybe one or two questions, but also if you have any questions, feel free to come up to us afterwards. They volunteered to stick around here for a few minutes and answer some questions as well. So we'll take one or two questions for the panel here.
Okay. So I'm working for Philips 66, and we are going through BT initiative, Business Transformation Initiative. And as part of that, we are working on cost rationalization across the tools. And MuleSoft optimization is one of the main focus, right? So there are a few challenges we are facing, and I have brought it to Jim right once. And there are multiple things, right? So one is we are a Titanium subscription, right? We have, and we want to go to, so we are on the cloud. We are focusing on Azure side, MS Azure, right? So we do not see out of the box connector connecting with the MuleSoft to the ADL, Azure Data Lake, to pull the data and put enterprise-wise all the data there, right? So that is the one thing. So if you have any information for that connector, right? The second thing is, so we have some APIs. They do not require even 0.1 vCore, right? They do not need, right? As per their uses, right? But still we have to give 0.1 vCore, right? As per the restrictions. So do we have some plans on that to make customers flexible to reduce or increase as per their demand? And yeah, one more question. I want to get these answers because I have to give it the answer back. The third thing is like, on Cloud Hub, right, we have the flexibility to increase or bump up our vCores, right, in the middle of the renewal period, but we do not have the feasibility to go down if we have extra, right? So these three questions, yeah.
Yeah, so I just will say on the pricing question, we are working